All right, now let's go to Indian Point. Cuomo administration pushing to close the nuclear power plant. That, of course, in the wake of yet another problem, this time a transformer fire shutting down a reactor and causing a fuel spill last week, as we reported. But is that just sound and fury? Because in the end, it's the feds, and as Andrew has told us many times, you got to go to King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, where they really make the call here. Shelley, realistically, it doesn't matter what the county exec, the governor, the state legislature really has to say at the end of the day. Does it? I mean, can New York really force a closure of a plant, even if there was the public will and even a legislative will to do it? Or is this really just an NRC call?
Well, it's an NRC call, but this is the power of the bully pulpit, the power of organizing. I don't think you can minimize that Governor Cuomo has a loud voice and an articulate one. If he creates enough momentum and pressure and noise, it influences the outcome. Does it assure an outcome that is what he wants? I don't know about that. But he's in the game to make a change, not just spinning his wheels. And I think that is how you affect federal policy. You get governors, county executives, you get environmentalists. I mean, look, that's what happened with fracking. They made enough noise and they made the guy change his mind.
Except Cuomo had the power to ban fracking in New York State single-handedly. He just waited 6 years for the report to come back. Whereas he has no say in closing Indian Point. I mean, they've tried some moves with the environmental regulations within the state and some of the water regulations. That hasn't worked out so far. And Cuomo, as Rich pointed out, has no say in what the NRC does when it comes to relicensing Indian Point.
Yeah, but that's where noise does matter. I understand technically, from a legal point of view, he can't affect the outcome, but he can make it difficult for them to go down a certain path, and that's what he's going to try to do. Agreed. He does not have the power.
I'm just not sure that he can present any more of an obstacle than a speed bump going down this road.
I think he presents way more
maybe
than
a large speed bump, but not.
He's not good with the small speed bumps, I can tell
you.
you.
Do you think, Shelley, the public knows by now enough about the plant to have an informed opinion? My whole argument's been, if people ever knew what an evacuation would look like, or let alone the impossibility of one to even fractionally be pulled off, I think some minds would change. But I'm not sure. I think we've talked about it long enough. Do you think the public's made up their mind one way or the other yet, or no?
No. I think, one, it's not in the forefront until some incident occurs like this one, and all of a sudden, oh my God, something went wrong. You know, something serious could go wrong. That's what the next thought is. One, an evacuation plan. But there always is this issue of where are we going to get the alternative energy? And, you know, in Albany, I know that's an issue they talk about. They come around and say, okay, yes, you favor closing the plant. Well, what are you going to do to make up for all the power that we're not going to provide? So I think people are not fully engaged, but the more there are incidents and accidents of whatever scope, it will raise the visibility for people.
But I just wonder, we had, obviously with 9/11, the public, I think most figured out, the jets flew right over the containment dome at Indian Point. Whether it would or wouldn't have compromised if they hit it, thankfully we will never know. But secondarily, we saw Fukushima. Okay, so we saw what a compromised nuclear reactor could look like, and obviously Chernobyl was on the radar. And even after all of that, I saw the polling. It's kind of gone back. At the time, there was public will to be opposed to the plan, and then now it's about 50-50, right?
50-50, especially with a lot of local support. But I'm curious, Assemblywoman, you represent Yonkers. What percentage of people in your district know that Indian Point is there? It's not 100%. Is it 50%? Is it? I mean, a lot of people don't know.
It's a very small subset. It's environmental activists, so people pay attention to that. It's a number of union members who are concerned about jobs there, who have been informed by their unions. And I would say in between is a vast number of people for whom this is not the issue of the day.
And it's hard to build up a coalition against it if people don't even know it's there.
And it's within the 50 miles, too. And this is an issue people should. Exactly. I wanted to ask you about a bill you're co-sponsoring, and it addresses parental abduction. First of all, explain what that is, and then also what the bill aims to correct.
So this is a problem when parents, not necessarily married and not necessarily when there's a court order, basically take a child and use a child as a pawn in their fight with the other parent. And it happens all the time. But one of the things that happens in New York State is it's very difficult to get a felony charge. So you take your kid from New York to Buffalo, and the child has no communication with his parent. It is very difficult for the FBI to get involved, even though they have the authority on if there's a felony charge. because our statute requires that you prove that the abductor wanted to take the kid permanently or for a protracted period of time. And that's very difficult, just to get a misdemeanor, very difficult. So this bill basically would strengthen New York law to make it easier to make the charge. There's a defense in the bill for if you're moving out of fear of domestic violence, but was brought to me by the FBI in Westchester, which is involved in other cases throughout the nation, but in New York has a very difficult time getting in and being helpful. So it's
This happens a lot more than we think.
It happens a lot. There's at least 200 per year in New York State, and that is viewed as an undercount because of our statute and because it's so difficult to charge it. Again, this is not about sort of who has custody and visitation. This is about a criminal act and treating it as a criminal act and getting all the resources of law enforcement together. And
it would just seem to me that if there was a couple gets divorced and there's obviously a custody arrangement.
Yes.
If one just decides to leave geographically, they could be in breach of the settlement,
Right.
divorce arrangement, or certainly you have visitation questions and all the rest, and right away that would, be. So if they're married but not yet formally, they're separated or divorced, that's the complicator?
Well, one of the complications is if there's no court order. So we're married, then we get separated, we haven't gone to court yet, and I'm worried that the other spouse is going to get custody. So in order to punish the other spouse, I take the child and move away. And we have to do better. We can do better in New York. We had an extraordinary story of a guy, as a young man, age 10, was taken out of the country for 2 years, 5 identities, never went to school. Mother burned down the house where the father had lived. Ultimately the mother committed suicide, obviously a mentally ill person. She took 2 children out of the country, and they're just by luck that they were actually came back and got reunited with their father.
Jeez.
And he tells a story as a survivor, as an adult, who thinks that we need to pay more attention. I was very touched by his story, and I think we got to do better.
There's a good chance we can get it passed?
It takes a few years.
All right. Well, we wish you the best of luck on
Thank
that
you.
one. When we come back on the other side of the break here, Isaiah Thomas getting off to a really rough start as he tries to face the press for the first time since becoming president of the New York Liberty. But he's talking like he's the savior to humanity. You're going to want to hear what he said because, frankly, you have to hear it to believe it.